Well, tonight we'll be looking at mortgage and why is it wise to take a mortgage? Is it not wise to take a mortgage? Is it a curse or a blessing? That is what we'll be taking a look at. And of course, we'll be having the big picture. But right now, we join Terry and analyst for the evening.
And of course, as we had mentioned earlier, we will be really focusing on home ownership and some of the things that yourself and the government can do to make it easier for not just the rich, but also for the middle class and the lower class to own homes. But for now, what better stock to look at than housing finance, which of course today released its results despite a slow uptake in mortgages. Housing finance posted a profit. And joining us now to discuss this is Mbithe Muema, a partner at Dialogist Consulting. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, what is housing finance's competitive advantage, and can it still lead in mortgages, given that we've seen a big entry of commercial banks into that segment?
Thank you, Terry, for having me on your show. Housing finance has been the leading mortgage provider in this country for well over 40 years. What has happened to its competitive advantage is the fact that other commercial banks have started getting into the similar space and using their balance sheets to be able to afford, or rather accord, financing to people who are taking mortgages. If you look at the statistics that are out there, KCB is near or about to surpass what housing finance is doing, which in a sense means that their competitive advantage is actually being eroded. And I don't know, it's just a matter of time if we get to see them actually be number one. Could actually lag based on that.
Now, one of the reasons I understand why banks charge quite a bit of interest, especially on mortgages, is because mortgages are packaged as long-term products, and banks do not have enough to finance such long-term projects. Is housing finance in a good position to be in a place where they can finance these long-term projects at a lower interest rate?
Ideally, they should be, but getting long-term financing is very hard, and if you actually are able to secure it, it comes at a very high cost. So, for example, if you look at the results that are out today and you compare the margins, the net margins for housing finance are at about 5%. For your commercial banks, they're between 10 to 15%. In the effect, that tells you that getting longer-term money is very hard and it's very expensive. Can they be able to access longer-term financing? I think we're discussing this with your panel of mortgage professionals. And the thing is, there's a place for the government to actually step in and try and be able to secure longer-term financing and pass the benefits on to the other people in the country. Because if you're expecting a small player in a bigger circle of the financial system to be able to secure that kind of funding, it becomes a bit of a headache for the said company. Let's
talk about the stock in particular. I mean, the company is still posting profits, even though the mortgage sector is not performing quite well. What is your take on how the stock will perform going forward?
It's an interesting play. I think we're in a position where the Nairobi Securities Exchange is going through a bull run. There's a lot of interest, a lot of foreign interest that's sustaining the corporate valuations, and people are not necessarily looking at the kind of business that the companies are doing. I think for housing finance as a company, there's a lot to be said. Their strategy doesn't seem to be aligned with what they're doing as a business, and in terms of its valuations, I'm not too sure it's something that you want to take up at this point in time.
So if you were to buy that stock, will you buy it?
No, I would not buy it.
All right.
Well, quite interesting there with all mortgages. Would you take a mortgage?
I'm not really sure. I'm one of those people who, I'm very particular about money, and just looking at some of the figures that are coming out, I want our panel of experts to convince us that maybe this is a proper thing. And of course, we have got somebody from National Housing Corporation who will tell us how the government in its policy making can make sure that some of us can also be able to own these homes. I mean, prices of 13 million shillings. How am I going to afford that?
You know, it comes at a point where I was thinking, I mean, mortgage is the right way to go. And then in the next few, I'll be checking out on the big picture. And I've seen some really huge, profits coming in there, making, we're looking forward to hear you from the panel of experts.
Most definitely.
Absolutely. You are watching Citizen Business Center. Well, coming up, we move on to Tender Corner. We'll be giving you details on which tenders to look out for, where to get yourselves the tenders, and how actually to go about it. Of course, Terry will also be talking to the analysts for the evening.
Yes, I will be talking to the analysts, and maybe we can just introduce them before we go into our next segment. George Adulu is head of mortgages at Jamii Bora Bank. Right next to him is Wachira Njuguna. He's the CEO of the National Housing Corporation. And right next to him is Njoroge Nganga, the CEO of Home Africa. Those are the experts that will be taking us through our topic for tonight. And if owning a home is your dream, like it is for most Kenyans and for most human beings, because of the security that it provides, not just for you, but for your family and for your future, you cannot afford to miss that segment.
Absolutely. Stay with us.